Chapter 31. Bringing back the master. Zhanti gazed at Laozi and Yuanqi. His Western sect couldn't swallow this insult. Yet, before Zhanti could finish his thought, Yuanqi had already turned his head to look at him, his expression unfriendly. Yuanqi snorted disdainfully. Who are you calling fellow Taoist? Yuanqi, do not count the two Western saints as my fellow Daists. This remark reminded Zhanti of the time when the Western sect poached people from the Chan sect. Yuanqi had originally come to Mount Sumo to settle accounts with the two Western saints. It was just by chance that he encountered Gu Changsheng here, and dealt with him first. Now that Gu Changsheng had left, Yuanqi naturally wouldn't show the two Western saints any kindness. At this moment, Jiejiao spoke in a deep voice. Yuanqi, I think we can still cooperate today with Gu Changsheng. Although Gu Changsheng's cultivation is not low, if the four of us join forces, we should be able to subdue him. Despite Gu Changsheng's high level of cultivation and possession of a chaos treasure, Jiejiao and the others didn't truly consider Gu Changsheng, a disciple of the Jie sect, as a threat. They believed that what the Tao ancestor couldn't resolve, they could find a way to handle, provided the four saints worked together. However, Jiejiao's words only made Yuanqi's expression even colder. With a sneer, Yuanqi glanced at random and the others, then said icily, forget it. I don't want to cooperate with you, two Western saints. After one cooperation, my Chan sect lost 4 disciples and a vice leader. If we cooperate again, there might only be me left in the Chan sect. The sarcasm in his words was undisguised. The two Western saints looked sullen. Jiejiao explained, Yuanqi, it's not like that. Random and the others joined our Western sect willingly. Seheng and the others are destined to be with the Western sect. You should want the best for your disciples too. Jiejiao spoke without the slig, a test hint of guilt, as if what he did was completely right. Yuanqi glanced at random and the others. Noticing his gaze, they all looked away, not daring to meet his eyes. Yuanqi then fixed his gaze on Jiejiao. So, by your logic, I should thank you for giving my disciples a better fight. There. Humph, Jiejiao, Zhanti, don't celebrate too soon. With that, Yuanqi turned and left the Western sect. Although he also wanted to deal with Gu Changsheng, after the events of the investiture of the gods, he would not cooperate with the two Western saints unless absolutely necessary. Seeing Yuanqi leave, Jiejiao and Zhanti turned their eyes to Laozi. Laozi said directly, don't look at me. I don't have many disciples in the human sect, and Gu Changsheng poses no threat to us. In essence, after Gu Changsheng appeared, he only destroyed one of Laozi's avatars, causing Laozi to lose face. Now, with Gu Changsheng at the peak of the 5th heaven of the Great Dalua realm, and wielding a chaos treasure, Laozi had no intention of provoking him based on the Western saint's words. The affairs of the Western sect should be handled by the Western sect itself. After saying this, Laozi also left. With Yuanqi and Laozi gone, only the people of the Western sect remained on Mount Sumo. Jiejiao looked at the now ruined Mount Sumo, and thought of his 6th grade, meritorious golden lotus and the self-exploded eastern green lotus banner, and was filled with rage. The Western sect had never suffered such a loss before. Zhanti, feeling equally indignant, said, Senior brother, are we just going to let this go? My 6 pure bamboo. Hearing Zhanti's complaint, Jiejiao gritted his teeth and said, don't worry. Didn't you notice? The master can deal with Gu Changsheng, but he needs to repair the investiture of the gods first. Once the master repairs the investiture of the gods, he will help our Western sect take down Gu Changsheng. For now, this was the best they could hope for. Without the help of Laozi and Yuanqi, the two Western saints alone were no match for Gu Changsheng. Jiejiao added, let's first focus on repairing Mount Sumo, and finding a place for Random and the others. But restoring Mount Sumo wouldn't be easy. While the two Western saints were busy repairing Mount Sumo, Golden Hour Island was bustling with activity. Xiao, tell us again, how did Senior Brother Gu deal with Random? Xiao, be more detailed. Is Senior Brother Gu really that powerful, defeating the 4 saints together? After Gu Changsheng brought Xiao and the others back to Golden Hour Island, they were quickly surrounded by many disciples of the Jie sect, eagerly listening to Xiao recount the events at Mount Sumo. Watching this scene from a distance, Duobao smiled and turned to Gu Changsheng, saying, Senior, our brother Gu, we owe you a lot this time. Since the defeat in the investiture of the gods, Such lively scenes have been rare on Golden Owl Island. When Gu Changsheng left, Duobao had been worried. But upon hearing that Gu Changsheng had single-handedly defeated the four saints at Mount Sumu, Duobao realized that the master's words were true. As long as Gu Changsheng returned, the Jie sect would surely regain its former glory. Unfortunately, the master was confined to Jiejiao Palace. Gu Changsheng replied, "As a disciple of the Jie sect, it is my duty. If four saints and three sects think they can bully the Jie sect, I will make them understand that the Jie sect is not to be trifled with." As they spoke, Wudong Shenmu flew over from afar. Wudong Shenmu looked at Gu Changsheng and Duobao, then fixed her gaze on Gu Changsheng and said, "Respectfully, senior brother Gu, I have spread the word, calling for the scattered Jie sect disciples in the great wilderness to return as soon as possible." Now, Gu Changsheng had become the backbone of the Jie sect. However, Wudong Shenmu said somewhat dejectedly, "But besides the disciples on the island, there aren't many left." The Jie sect had suffered great losses in the battle of the 10,000 Immortals array. After Wudong Shenmu finished speaking, Duobao sighed. When the master was here, the Jie sect had thousands of Immortals gathering. Now we've fallen to this state. Although Gu Changsheng had returned, and the battle at Mount Sumu had restored some of the Jie sect's prestige, Gu Changsheng was still a disciple of the Jie sect, not the leader. Gu Changsheng couldn't replace Tongtian's position in the Jie sect yet. After Duobao Enraged, Gu Changsheng chuckled, and said, "Isn't it simple? The master isn't dead. We can just go and bring the master back." Chapter 32. Changsheng arrives at Jiejiao Palace. Gu Changsheng spoke lightly, almost casually. However, Duobao and Wudong Shenmu both widened their eyes in surprise. After a moment of stunned silence, Duobao sighed and said with a bitter smile, "Senior brother, you must be joking." "Indeed, our master is not dead, but he is confined to Jiejiao Palace by the Dao ancestor. Without the Dao ancestor's permission, how could our master possibly return?" Even though Gu Changsheng had defeated the four saints, bringing their master back would require the Dao ancestor's approval. Gu Changsheng looked at Duobao and asked calmly, "Let me ask you, do you think our master should be confined to Jiejiao Palace?" "Of course not. In the battle of the 10,000 Immortals, our Jie sect suffered the greatest losses. The four saints and three sects ganged up on us, while Laozi and Yuanqi unscathed, while only our master is confined to Jiejiao Palace." With Gu Changsheng's question, Duobao immediately responded indignantly. Even Wudong Shenmu added in a low voice, "I also think the Dao ancestor was unfair in this matter." Hearing their response, Gu Changsheng laughed heartily. "If our master shouldn't be confined, why should he stay in Jiejiao Palace? I'll go and bring our master back." As he spoke, Gu Changsheng's figure moved, ascending into the sky, heading towards Jiejiao Palace. Duobao and Wudong Shenmu watched him leave. In a daze, they exchanged glances. Wudong Shenmu asked, bewildered, "Senior brother Duobao, do you think senior brother Gu can really bring our master back?" The confusion in Duobao's eyes gradually faded, replaced by determination. He said firmly, "He definitely can." The hope for the Jie sect seemed to grow brighter. "Senior brother Gu, you must bring our master back." As Gu Changsheng rushed to Jiejiao Palace. At Jiejiao Palace, a figure sat silently in a corner of Jiejiao Palace. This person remained motionless, with no trace of magical power emanating from him. If not for the faint rise and fall of his chest, one might think he was dead. Yet, who could have imagined that this was the once mighty leader of the Jie sect, the Shaking Saint Tongtian? Since being confined to Jiejiao Palace, Tongtian had been in a state of despondency. Suddenly, a figure appeared silently before Tongtian. Hoggen looked at Tongtian and spoke slowly, "Tongtian." Hearing the voice, Tongtian lifted his head to glance at Hoggen, but quickly lowered it again, saying nothing. Hoggen continued, "Who is this Gu Changsheng, and when did you take such a disciple?" At the mention of Gu Changsheng, Tongtian's dim eyes brightened, and he said excitedly, "Changsheng, has he returned?" As long as Gu Changsheng was back, there was still hope for the Jie sect. Seeing Tongtian's reaction, Hoggen coldly said, "Yes, he's back. Your good disciple caused a great commotion at the Fengshan platform, and destroyed Mount Sumu. To think he's already at the 5th level of the Great Desolation realm. You truly took in a remarkable disciple." Hoggen's words left Tongtian stunned. Although he always knew Gu Changsheng was extraordinary, he hadn't expected that during his time away, Gu Changsheng would reach the 5th level of the Great Desolation realm. However, Tongtian immediately felt a deep sense of regret. If only he had recalled Gu Changsheng when the first Jie sect disciple fell during the Fengtian calamity, the Jie sect would have had a different outcome. Ultimately, it was his fault. I just want to ask you, who exactly is this Gu Changsheng? Hoggen asked again. His main reason for coming was to confirm Gu Changsheng's identity. As the Dao ancestor, he couldn't fathom why he couldn't see through Gu Changsheng, which puzzled him greatly. However, Tongtian replied indifferently, "What do you mean, who is he?" "He's simply a disciple I took in a long time ago, my first disciple." "It's that simple." Hoggen frowned slightly. Tongtian's answer was vague and uninformative. Of course, there was another possibility Tongtian himself might not know. If even the Dao ancestor couldn't understand, it was normal for Tongtian not to know. Gu Changsheng seemed to be a significant anomaly in the world. Fine. Since he couldn't get an answer, he would stop a thing. Once the Fengtian list was repaired and the Fengtian calamity was over, he would become even more integrated with the heavenly Dao, and his power would increase. By then, no anomaly in the world would be beyond his reach. Hoggen said nothing more and turned to leave. Tongtian, still seated, muttered to himself, "Changsheng, the future of the Jie sect depends on you." Moments later, another figure appeared before Tongtian. Without lifting his head, Tongtian spoke. "Does the master have more questions?" Yet, the person did not respond. Meanwhile, in the main hall of Jiejiao Palace, where Hoggen was repairing the Fengtian list, he sensed something and frowned. What was Gu Changsheng doing at Jiejiao Palace? Although curious, Hoggen didn't dwell on it. What trouble could Gu Changsheng cause by merely meeting Tongtian? He refocused on repairing the Fengtian list. Noticing that the person before him neither left nor answered, Tongtian grew puzzled and looked up. "Master, Changsheng, why are you here?" Mid-sentence, Tongtian finally saw clearly. Standing before him was not Hoggen, but Gu Changsheng. "No." Master and disciple met, and Gu Changsheng spoke calmly. "Hoggen has nothing more to ask. But I want to ask, how long will you stay in Jiejiao Palace?" Tongtian's expression froze, then he asked again, "How is the Jie sect now?" Gu Changsheng responded solemnly, "The Shan dynasty has fallen. The Jie sect has lost nearly all its disciples, most of whom are now on the Fengtian list. However, I destroyed the Fengtian list, and it will take Hoggen some time to repair it. Also, I have rescued Qiu Shixin, and others taken by the Western sect, and the traitor Dingguo Xian has been executed." Hearing Gu Changsheng's words, Tongtian's face turned grim. The Jie sect's current dire state was all because of him. Tongtian sighed, "From now on, the Jie sect is in your hands." But that wasn't what Gu Changsheng wanted to hear. He asked again, "Master, you haven't answered me. How long will you stay in Jiejiao Palace?" Tongtian looked at Gu Changsheng, shook his head, and smiled bitterly. "The master ordered me to stay confined in Jiejiao Palace. Hoggen ordered you to be confined here, and so you stay. He also wants all our Jie sect disciples on the Fengtian list. Why not just dissolve the Jie sect? What's the point of summoning me back?" Chapter 33. As long as you desire, there is still a chance. Gu Changsheng's cold and severe words echoed in Tongtian's ears. Tongtian froze, then glared at Gu Changsheng, angrily retorting, "Nonsense. Do you know what you are saying? How could the Jie sect be disbanded?" Tongtian had never imagined that Gu Changsheng would say such a thing. But Gu Changsheng's lips curled into a mocking smile. "Really, in my opinion, a Jie sect without its leader might as well be disbanded." For some reason, these words from Gu Changsheng were extremely jarring to Tongtian. After a moment of thought, Tongtian spoke solemnly. "Though I am confined to Jiejiao Palace, isn't there still you? It was my arrogance and failure to recall you in time that led to the current state of the Jie sect. But with you, there is still hope for the Jie sect. With your cultivation at the 5th level of the Great Desolation realm, you are no less powerful than I am. Under your leadership, the Jie sect will thrive." After these words, the mocking smile on Gu Changsheng's face grew even more pronounced. He directly mocked, "Do you think I can completely replace you as the leader of the Jie sect? And let me ask you, do you remember why you founded the Jie sect in the first place, and what the core principle of the Jie sect is? And do you think Hoggen's actions are fair to the Jie sect?" These rapid-fire questions left Tongtian stunned. Could Gu Changsheng replace him as the leader of the Jie sect? Of course not. No matter how powerful Gu Changsheng became, he was still Tongtian's disciple, and Tongtian was the leader of the Jie sect. The position of leader was crucial for the Jie sect, especially in its current state. Seeing Tongtian's silence, Gu Changsheng coldly continued, "What's the matter? Have you forgotten, master? Let me remind you. When you founded the Jie sect, it was to seize a chance at survival in the world. The Jie sect is unyielding and indomitable. But what about you, Master Aun? What have you done since the Fengshan calamity began?" Each of Gu Changsheng's words struck Tongtian's heart like steel needles. Regret began to show in Tongtian's eyes. Since the start of the Fengshan calamity, you ordered the disciples to close the mountain gates and not get involved in worldly affairs, hoping to avoid the calamity. Then, out of concern for the so-called Brotherhood of the Three Purities, you watched as Laozi and Yuanqi attacked our Jie sect disciples. Finally, out of concern for your reputation, you failed to recall me in time. Was it really that the Jie sect couldn't stand against the 4 saints and 3 sects? Enough! Tongtian suddenly shouted. But Gu Changsheng had no intention of stopping. Why not say it? The Jie sect has fallen to this state because you, master, have become less and less like the Tongtian you once were. Don't forget, you are first the leader of the Jie sect, and only then the so-called Shagking Saint. Hearing this barrage of questions, Tongtian suddenly laughed at himself. Gu Changsheng was right. At some point, he had stopped being the Tongtian he is it to be. The Jie sect was founded to seize a chance at survival in the world, even defying the heavenly Tao itself. Why obey the ridiculous commands of Hoggen? Moreover, Hoggen's unfairness was evident. With a bitter smile, Tongtian said, "What use is it to say this now? The Fengshan calamity has already ended." Gu Changsheng returned too late. The Fengshan outcome was already set, and the Jie sect could not be saved. But Gu Changsheng countered, "Why is it useless? The Fengshan calamity is not over. The positions on the Fengshan list are not yet filled, and celestial duties have not been officially conferred. How can you say the Jie sect has no chance to turn things around?" These words made Tongtian's eyes widen in disbelief as he stared at Gu Changsheng. Gu Changsheng's face was full of confidence and composure, showing no signs of pure attents. Tongtian hesitantly asked, "Is there really still a chance?" "Of course, it all depends on whether you want it, or not," Gu Changsheng said, turning to leave. He had said all he could. The key now was whether his master could come to his senses. If Tongtian couldn't understand, then even if Gu Changsheng forcibly took him out of Jiejiao Palace today, it wouldn't change anything. Seeing Gu Changsheng about to leave, Tongtian immediately stood up and said in a deep voice, "Wait." After a brief pause, Tongtian continued, "I will leave with you. If the Jie sect was to have any hope of recovery, he couldn't stay in Jiejiao Palace any longer." Gu Changsheng turned back to look at Tongtian, finally showing a hint of joy on his face. It seemed his words had an effect. His master wasn't entirely stubborn and rigid. As Gu Changsheng and Tongtian were about to leave Jiejiao Palace, a voice called out from behind them. "Hold on." Hoggen appeared, his eyes slightly complex. Initially, he thought it was fine for Gu Changsheng to meet Tongtian. But why was Tongtian now leaving? Tongtian and Gu Changsheng turned to face Hon Chun. Hoggen asked with a detached expression, "Have you forgotten my order to confine yourself to Jiejiao Palace?" He expected this question to make Tongtian comply, as the 6 saints of the primordial world had always obeyed him without question. But this time, Tongtian solemnly replied, I have not forgotten. But I believe the confinement is unjust." That day, it was clearly the 4 saints and 3 sects attacking the Jie sect. I merely acted to protect my sect by opposing Yuanqi and Laozi. If the 3 purities all took action, why was I the only one confined? Hearing Tongtian's question, Hoggen replied coolly, "You intended to detonate the 4 swords of immortality, causing chaos in the world and disregarding countless lives. That should leave him speechless." But Tongtian had already prepared his response. "You said it yourself, intended, but I did not actually do it. Moreover, during my confinement in Jiejiao Palace, the Jie sect has suffered greatly, which should be punishment enough. So this time, I cannot comply." Hoggen then looked at Gu Changsheng. If it were the old Tongtian, he would never have spoken this way. Clearly, Gu Changsheng had influenced him. However, Tongtian's argument was valid. Besides, the Fengshan outcome was already set, and even if Tongtian returned now, it wouldn't change anything. Hoggen didn't want to waste time on such a trivial matter when requiring the Fengshan list was more pressing. With a wave of his hand, Hoggen said, "Fine, leave if you wish. But remember, you have taken the Pill of Fallen Saints. Do not seek revenge against Yuanqi and Laozi, or the pill will activate, and you will immediately lose your saint status." Hoggen's reminder only served to reinforce Tongtian's resolve. After a moment of silence, determination flashed in his eyes as he spoke firmly. "No need to remind me, Master. Today, I, Tongtian, renounce my saint status." Chapter 34. Tongtian's resolute self-demotion. As soon as Tongtian uttered these words, Hoggen's previously impassive expression turned dark, his gaze on Tongtian growing colder. If Tongtian leaving Jiejiao Palace merely surprised Hoggen, then Tongtian's declaration of self-demotion from his saintly status utterly shocked him. After all, Tongtian leaving Jiejiao Palace had little consequence. But self-demotion meant Tongtian would no longer be a heavenly Dao saint, making it impossible for Hoggen to control him under that title. Moreover, the 6 saints of the primordial world were established by the heavenly Dao. Tongtian's sudden self-demotion would disrupt the established order and cause unforeseen consequences. Hoggen's gaze fell on Gu Changsheng. It seemed that ever since Gu Changsheng appeared, events in the primordial world started slipping out of Hoggen's control. This child must not be allowed to stay. Once he fully merges with the Dao, Gu Changsheng must be dealt with. Listening to Tongtian's declaration, Gu Changsheng chuckled lightly. It seemed his master had figured this out on his own. This was good. Initially, Gu Changsheng intended to suggest this course of action once they returned to Goldenau Island. At this moment, Gu Changsheng noticed Hoggen's gaze and met his eyes. Their gazes locked, and Gu Changsheng's lips curled into a slight smile. He could clearly see the killing intent in Hoggen's eyes. But so what? What could Hoggen do to him? Hoggen, not wanting to engage in a fruitless struggle with Gu Changsheng at this moment, shifted his focus back to Tongtian and said solemnly, "Tongtian, have you thought this through? Once you renounce your saintly status, you will never have the chance to become a saint again. How many cultivators in the primordial world aspired to sainthood? But with limited purple chi, only 6 achieved sainthood. Now Tongtian was about to give it up." Tongtian had indeed thought it through. Gu Changsheng was right. He was Tongtian, the leader of the Jie sect, before being the Shag King saint. By relinquishing his saintly status, he would no longer be bound by the Pill of Fallen Saints or Hoggen's orders. Given the current state of the Jie sect, extraordinary measures were necessary to break the current predicament. Tongtian's face showed firm resolve. "I have thought it through." Then he looked back at Gu Changsheng, took a deep breath, and a sword's cry echoed. The immortal execution sword appeared. Holding the immortal execution sword, Tongtian radiated an endless saintly aura. He looked up at the sky and shouted, "Today, I, Tongtian, renounce my saintly status. From now on, there is no Shag King saint in the primordial world, only the leader of the Jie sect." His deep voice, amplified by his magical power, echoed throughout the primordial world. At this moment, the entire primordial world shook. In the ruins of Mount Sumu, the Western saints Jiang and Zhenti looked towards Jiejiao Palace upon hearing the voice. Zhenti exclaimed in shock, "Tongtian must be mad, renouncing his saintly status." Jiang, however, sneered, "Let him. Renouncing his saintly status may free him from the constraints of being a saint, but what can he achieve without it?" Neither Gu Changsheng nor Tongtian could change the fact that the Jie sect had already fallen. The future of the primordial world belonged to the Western sect. On Kunlun Mountain, within Yuxu Palace, Yuanqi's expression froze upon hearing the voice from the sky, then he laughed coldly. "Renouncing his saintly status. How naive. I'd like to see how Gu Changsheng alone can support the Jie sect without you." Once his cultivation improved, he would seek vengeance on Gu Changsheng. At Xi'an Mountain, in Beijing Palace, Laozi was stunned by the voice declaring Tongtian's renouncement. Chaos was spreading. He had thought that with the fall of the Shang dynasty and the near decimation of the Jie sect disciples, the Jie sect was becoming history. Yet, Gu Changsheng seemed to have sparked a revival of the Jie sect. Now, with Tongtian renouncing his saintly status, it meant he could act more freely in the future. Even though Tongtian was no longer a saint, as a quasi-saint, few in the primordial woe. Laozi could rival him. It seemed the Jie sect was poised for a resurgence. But what did that have to do with him? The Jie sect's first target for revenge would be the Chan sect. Let Yuanqi deal with it. His intuition told him it was best not to provoke Gu Changsheng or the Jie sect at his time. After all, if the sky fell, the master would bear it. In front of Jiejiao Palace, as Tongtian finished speaking, a thunderous roar echoed from the sky. A heavenly Tao saint's primordial spirit was bound to the heavenly Tao, making them immortal. Now, Tongtian's self-demo, Ziya naturally incited the wrath of the heavenly Tao. But Tongtian's immortal execution sword showed no hesitation as it slashed at himself. The immortal execution sword cut through, without spilling any blood, as if something intangible was severed. That was Tongtian's saintly status. The immortal execution sword severed his saintly status, and Tongtian shuddered, his face paling as he spat out blood. His cultivation plummeted from saint to quasi-saint. At that moment, the long-brewing wrath of the heavenly Tao descended from the sky. With a roar, a bolt of black lightning fell from the sky. The black lightning, like an enraged dragon, tore through space as it descended. Even saints would struggle to withstand such power, let alone Tongtian, who was no longer a saint. Several sword cries echoed. The slaughtering immortal, trapping immortal, and extinguishing immortal swords were successively summoned. The 4 immortal execution swords hovered above Tongtian's head. Though difficult to resist, this was all Tongtian could muster now. Just as the black lightning was about to strike, a figure appeared before Tongtian. Gu Changsheng stood tall in the sky, his white robes fluttering in the wind, his deep eyes fixed on the black lightning. With a cry, the heaven-slaying sword appeared in his right hand. Gu Changsheng's lips moved as he uttered a single word, "Begone." The heaven-slaying sword shed, instantly obliterating the black lightning. With him here, how could he allow his master to be harmed? Sheathing the heaven-slaying sword, Gu Changsheng looked at Tongtian and said calmly, "Master, let's go." Still in shock from the heaven-slaying sword's power, Tongtian finally responded to Gu Changsheng's call. "You should have said earlier you were going to act." I summoned the 4 immortal execution swords, ready for a desperate fight. Tongtian sheathed the 4 immortal execution swords, and looked at Hoggen, saying slowly, "Farewell, Tao Ancestor." The title had changed from Master to Tao Ancestor. Tongtian had renounced not only his saintly status, but also his relationship with Hoggen. He had become a saint through Hoggen's teachings, and the bestowed purple chi. Today, he returned it all. With that, Tongtian and Gu Changsheng left. Hoggen's eyes grew colder and colder as he watched them go. Gu Changsheng. Even if Tongtian renounced his saintly status, what of it? As before, it was too late. The outcome of the Fengshen calamity was set. Once the Fengshen list was repaired and his fusion with the Tao progressed further, he would deal with Gu Changsheng. Chapter 35, Gu Changsheng's Plan, Rescuing People from the Fengshen List. Golden Hour Island. Mayu Palace, usually cold and quiet, was almost bursting at the seams today. After Gu Changsheng and Tongtian returned, all the Jie sect disciples, led by Duobao, hurried over. Everyone looked at Gu Changsheng with faces full of excitement. Gu Changsheng had said he would bring their master back, and he actually did. Tongtian sat comfortably in Mayu Palace, feeling much better than in Jiejiao Palace, where he had been staying awkwardly. However, one thing made Tongtian slightly unhappy. Although he had returned, and the Jie sect disciples had gathered in Mayu Palace, none of them seemed to be looking at him. Every disciple present was staring at Gu Changsheng with fervent, worshipful eyes. Tongtian had never experienced such treatment before. His senior disciple was indeed extraordinary, being at the 5th level of the Great Desolation realm, and wielding a chaos treasure. The Jie sect had hope once again. Yet, soon, Tongtian felt a wave of sadness. The disciples in Mayu Palace were numerous, but compared to the peak of the Jie sect, they were just a fraction. Ultimately, it was his own fault that the Jie sect had suffered so much. He steadied himself and said solemnly, "I have an announcement to make." Hearing his voice, the disciples finally turned their attention to Tongtian. Tongtian continued slowly, "Though I have returned to Mayu Palace, I am no longer a heavenly Tao saint. I will enter seclusion for some time. During this period, Changsheng will act as the leader of the Jie sect. Do you have any objections?" Before Tongtian could finish his last sentence, the disciples below had already started shouting, "No objections. I agree. I agree too." Senior brother Gu's cultivation is profound, and his strategies are brilliant. With him as acting leader, our Jie sect will prosper. Listening to these words, Tongtian's face twitched. He even wondered if he should not have come back at all. His return seemed somewhat redundant. But then Duobao spoke up, Master, please enter seclusion with peace of mind. We wish you a swift breakthrough. Tongtian felt a surge of emotion. Duobao was still the most considerate. Gu Changsheng then said, All right, everyone, go back to your training. It won't be long before the Jie sect will settle scores with the 4 saints and the 3 sects. The disciples left Bayou Palace excitedly after hearing this. Once everyone had left, Tongtian looked at Gu Changsheng and sighed. Changsheng, you are speaking too boldly. Although you are powerful and have defeated the 4 saints, the Tao ancestor will not allow you to act recklessly in the primordial world. Gu Changsheng knew what Tongtian was worried about, and immediately said, Master, rest assured. I have a plan. Even without my direct involvement, our Jie sect disciples can still surpass the disciples of the 3 sects. Hearing this, Tongtian was taken aback. Jie sect disciples. If it were before, this would not be a problem. But now, with Jiang and Jinling on the list, and others suppressed, how could the Jie sect disciples make a difference? Suddenly, Tongtian remembered something. In Jijiao Palace, Gu Changsheng had mentioned that it was not too late. What did he mean by that? Could Gu Changsheng have a way? Tongtian's eyes were filled with expectation and uncertainty as he looked at Gu Changsheng. Gu Changsheng said, As long as the positions in the heavenly court are not fully conferred, I have a way to rescue our Jie sect disciples. These words made Tongtian's eyes widen in surprise. He finally understood what Gu Changsheng meant. Grabbing Gu Changsheng's shoulders, Tongtian asked excitedly, You mean you can rescue those Jie sect disciples on the list? His voice was full of excitement and disbelief. Though it sounded absurd, Tongtian wanted to hear a definite answer from Gu Changsheng. Under Tongtian's gaze, Gu Changsheng nodded slightly. Why not? The Fengshen list is just a top-grade innate spiritual treasure created by the heavenly Tao to temporarily hold the souls to be conferred. If I can cut through the Fengshen list with my sword, why can't I rescue people from it? Gu Changsheng's words left Tongtian stunned. But soon, Tongtian said, But that's different. Cutting through the Fengshen list is just cutting through a top-grade innate spiritual treasure. But rescuing people from the Fengshen list means contending with the heavenly Tao itself. This kind of thing couldn't be that simple. Gu Changsheng countered, Why can't we contend with the heavenly Tao? What is the heavenly Tao? When Pangu created the world, heaven, earth, and humanity coexisted. The heavenly Tao just awakened earlier. As long as the power is saint, room enough, why can't we contend with the heavenly Tao? These words left Tongtian completely dumbfounded. Gu Changsheng's words echoed in Tongtian's ears, like a great bell, making it hard to regain his composure. Tongtian looked at Gu Changsheng. How could this guy make it sound so simple and matter-of-fact? Indeed, with enough power, one could contend with the heavenly Tao. Above the heavenly Tao, there was the great Tao. The question was, did Gu Changsheng have this power? In the past, Tongtian would not have believed it possible. But now, he hesitated. He truly could not see through his senior disciple. After a long time, Tongtian regained his composure and smiled. Fine, do as you see fit. From today, you are in charge of everything in the Jie sect. I will enter seclusion to strive for a breakthrough to the great Tao Luo goal, then immortal. If they were going to do this, they would go all the way. If the heavens wanted to destroy the Jie sect, then the Jie sect would defy the heavens. He couldn't let Gu Changsheng shoulder everything alone. He had to reach the great Tao Luo golden immortal level as soon as possible. Gu Changsheng then took out a spirit jade from his right palm and handed it to Tongtian. Master, these are some of my insights from breaking through to the great Tao Luo. They should be helpful to you. Tongtian accepted the spirit jade and couldn't help but laugh. I haven't taught you much, and now you are teaching me. But Gu Changsheng didn't mind. When he had just crossed over to the primordial world without his system, it was Tongtian who had protected him. Now, it was time for him to repay that kindness. No more talking. Master, you should go into seclusion. I have some plans to start on. With that, Gu Changsheng left Bayou Palace. Tongtian then began his seclusion. Gu Changsheng found a cave and brought up his system panel. To contend with the heavenly Tao and rescue people from the Fengshen list, his NT 5th level cultivation was far from enough. But he had a system. Chapter 36. The plan begins. 100 days per person. The system shop panel appeared before Gu Changsheng. Rows of various options were lined up in the shop. Chaos Treasure. Heaven Opening Divine Axe. 30 million Tianji points. Chaos Treasure. Chaos Green Lotus. 30 million. On Tianji points. Chaos Treasure. Creation Jade Disc. 30 million Tianji points. Looking at the various options in the system shop, Gu Changsheng couldn't help but feel a wave of emotion. Anything you could think of could be exchanged in the system shop. However, the rarer and more precious the item, the more Tianji points it required. Most Chaos Treasures started at 20 million Tianji points. Thinking about this, Gu Changsheng felt somewhat lucky. Both the Heaven-Slaying Sword and Chaos Pearl, these two major Chaos Treasures, were rewards from SKS. However, these were rewards from the initial system activation tasks, basically a beginner's gift package. For subsequent tasks, the rewards were only Tianji points. Even so, after being outside the domain for so long, he had only accumulated over 2 million Tianji points. Earning enough Tianji points to exchange for a Chaos Treasure through normal tasks would take an unknown amount of time. Fortunately, his current goal wasn't these Chaos Treasures. The shop panel scrolled before Gu Changsheng's eyes. Soon, Gu Changsheng found his target. A treasure, Honmeng Juntian Scroll, 2 million Tianji points. Then Gu Changsheng checked his Tianji points. Including the 10,000 points just rewarded for the Zumi Mountain sign-in task, he had a total of 2.21 million points. Although it pained him to spend 2 million points at once, it was worth it. Without hesitation, Gu Changsheng exchanged for the Honmeng Juntian Scroll. As for the detailed introduction of this treasure, Gu Changsheng didn't even need to look. He already knew it. When he had just left the Great Wilderness, and went to the outer domain, he had thought about a possibility. The Fengshen calamity had already begun, but his master had not notified him in time, resulting in most of the Jie sect disciples being listed, when he returned. It was then that Gu Changsheng started thinking of ways. The Honmeng Juntian Scroll W, as his contingency plan. As an innate treasure, the Honmeng Juntian Scroll had a function similar to the Life and Death Book, but it was stronger. The Life and Death Book, a supreme innate spiritual treasure, could control life and death. The Honmeng Juntian Scroll, however, controlled the primordial spirit of cultivators. As long as a cultivator's name was written in the Honmeng Juntian Scroll, and magic power was used to activate it daily, after 100 days, the cultivator's primordial spirit would be forcibly summoned and sealed in the scroll, at Gu Changsheng's disposal. He could use this treasure to reclaim the primordial spirits of the Jie sect disciples. This function was somewhat similar to the Six Soul Banner. Of course, the use of the Honmeng Juntian Scroll had many restrictions. Whether a name could be successfully written in the scroll depended on Gu Changsheng's cultivation level. Simply put, with his current cultivation of the 5th level of the primordial realm, he could only write the names of those below the 2nd level of the Saint realm. Additionally, the location of the target's primordial spirit also mattered. For instance, the targets he wanted to write this time all had their primordial spirits on the Fengshen list. Snatching someone from the Fengshen list was akin to defying the heavens. Whether it would succeed, Gu Changsheng didn't know. But for now, it was his only option. Before starting, he needed to adjust his state to the best. After a simple meditation, Gu Changsheng took out the Honmeng Juntian Scroll and began his action. The moment the scroll opened, a mysterious power enveloped the entire cave. Gu Changsheng used his finger as a pen and his magic power as ink, beginning to activate the scroll. As the first stroke fell, he felt his magic power rapidly depleting. It seemed the Honmeng Juntian Scroll couldn't be used lightly. Focusing his mind, Gu Changsheng's finger moved. In moments, the name Bixiao appeared on the scroll. He chose Bixiao because her cultivation level was mid to high among the Jie sect disciples. He wanted to test how difficult it was to snatch someone from the Fengshen list. As soon as Bixiao's name was completed, a golden light appeared on the Honmeng Juntian scroll. Gu Changsheng's magic power was being consumed at an alarming rate. Fortunately, this consumption soon stopped. The magic power consumption was still within Gu Changsheng's tolerance. The first day ended. For the next 100 days, Gu Changsheng infused magic power into the Hongmeng Jun Tian scroll daily, gaining a deeper understanding of this treasure. With his current cultivation level, he could only write one name at a time in the scroll. When the 100-day period arrived, and after the final infusion of magic power, a golden light flew in from outside, entering the scroll. The name Jiejiao on the scroll turned completely golden. This signified that Jiejiao's primordial spirit had been drawn into the Hongmeng Juntian scroll. After waiting a moment, nothing unusual happened. Gu Changsheng was overjoyed. It seemed Ongjin hadn't noticed, meaning the plan to use the Hongmeng Juntian scroll to snatch primordial spirits was feasible. This gave Gu Changsheng peace of mind. His contingency plan worked. However, saving one person every 100 days was slow. But it didn't matter, as long as it kid. 100 days for one person was fine. One would lead to another. Gu Changsheng entered the system space, and released Jiejiao's primordial spirit from the Hongmeng Juntian scroll. Jiejiao's primordial spirit was still unconscious. Just like Zhao Gongming before, it needed nurturing to recover. This wasn't a problem. Placing it in the Chaos Pearl would suffice. But a new problem arose. The primordial spirit was retrieved, but it needed a body for revival. How to reconstruct bodies for the Jie sect disciples without affecting their previous cultivation? This was a difficult point. Gu Changsheng thought for a long time without a solution. Just as he was about to ask Tongtian, the system prompt sounded in his ear. New task assigned. Sign in at War Palace. Please sign in at War Palace to receive the special treasure, Spirit Nourishing Water. Spirit Nourishing Water can bestow vitality. Originally clueless about how to reconstruct bodies for the Jie sect disciples, Gu Changsheng's eyes lit up at this task. War Palace, Newer. If he remembered correctly, Newer had the 9 heavens restorative soil. The 9 heavens restorative soil plus the Spirit Nourishing Water should be able to reconstruct bodies for the Jie sect disciples. Even without this task, it was time to visit War Palace. Chapter 37. Returning to Mount Sumo in the War Palace, a woman lay leisurely on the throne at the center of the hall, her eyes closed as she rested. Her garments could hardly conceal her graceful figure, particularly her long legs, which were especially eye-catching. Unfortunately, such a tantalizing scene was something no one in the great wilderness dared to indulge in. The boy attendant at one side of the hall didn't even glance at the woman, knowing that Newer had been in a foul mood recently. He knew better than to get into trouble at such a time. To be more precise, since King Zhou of Shang had desecrated Newer's temple with his poem, her mood had been sour. In her anger, Newer had sent the 3 demons of Zhuanian Tomb to create chaos in the Shang dynasty, undermining its fortunes. Yet, even after the fall of the Shang dynasty, Newer felt no joy. Something seemed off, but with the Shang dynasty already destroyed, investigating further seemed futile. She couldn't very well summon King Zhao's soul for questioning. Thus, Newer had secluded herself in the War Palace, but despite her retreat, her cultivation remained at a bottleneck, showing no signs of progress. Suddenly, a boy attendant ran in from outside the hall. Lady Newer. Hearing the voice, Newer slowly opened her eyes, a trace of coldness flickering within them. The boy was momentarily at a loss, fearful that he had disturbed Newer's rest. Fortunately, Newer didn't seem inclined to pursue the matter, and simply said, "Speak." "Lady Newer, someone has come to visit." A hint of curiosity flickered in Newer's beautiful eyes. Who had come to the War Palace at such a time? Who? The boy immediately replied, "He claims to be Gu Changsheng of the Jie sect." Hearing the name Gu Changsheng, the curiosity in Newer's eyes deepened. She hadn't left the War Palace in a long time, but that didn't mean she was unaware of events in the great wilderness. Recently, Gu Changsheng had become a prominent figure. As the first disciple of Tongtian, a Dalwar Jingxian of the primordial level, his exploits had spread widely, wreaking havoc at the Fengshan platform, and slicing Mount Sumo in half with a single sword. Could he be here about the Jie sect? After a brief thought, Newer said, "Tell him I'm in seclusion, and not available to see visitors." But no sooner had she spoken than a voice called out from outside the hall. "Gu Changsheng comes uninvited. I beg your pardon, Taoist friend." As the voice rang out, Gu Changsheng himself appeared before Newer. Seeing Gu Changsheng already standing before Newer, the boy's expression changed, and he quickly said, "How rude of you. I haven't given you permission to enter." He didn't know Gu Changsheng was a Dalu or Jinxian of the primordial level. He only knew that if he didn't say something, he would be in trouble if Niwa held him accountable. Fortunately, Niwa waved her hand, indicating for the boy to leave. The hall was soon left with only Gu Changsheng and Niwa. Niwa sized up Gu Changsheng, noting his upright posture, sword-like brows, and starry eyes, finding his appearance quite pleasing compared to those Deists. The aura emanating from him was profoundly mysterious. A Dalu or Jinxian of the 5th level of the primordial realm, his cultivation level was slightly higher than her own. However, Niwa was somewhat displeased by Gu Changsheng's indifferent demeanor, as if he hadn't even noticed her. Niwa said coldly, "What if I don't pardon you? Why have you come to see me? If you seek my help against Yuanqi and others for the Jie sect, you are wasting your time." She had no intention of involving herself in the disputes of the great wilderness again. This was within Gu Changsheng's expectations. He responded, "Rest assured, Taoist friend, I can handle the 4 saints and the 3 sects on my own. I've come to you for another matter." Niwa's eyes flashed with surprise. Gu Changsheng didn't seem to take the 4 saints and 3 sects seriously, NG only he would dare say in the entire great wilderness. "Speak then." Niwa, intrigued, sat up, her skirt covering her long legs. Since it wasn't about the 4 saints and 3 sects, why had Gu Changsheng come to see her? Gu Changsheng began slowly, "I've come to ask for the any heaven's restorative soil." Hearing this, Niwa's interest waned considerably, and her beautiful eyes widened slightly. This man had come to ask for her treasure with such a matter-of-fact attitude, not seeming like someone seeking a favor. "You know what the 9 heavens restorative soil is? Why should I give it to you? Or what do you offer in exchange?" Niwa asked. Gu Changsheng smiled faintly, and said, "It's simple. I can help you with something or solve a mystery for you." Niwa was puzzled. What did she need help with? "Speak plainly." "I don't have much patience," Niwa urged. Gu Changsheng, still unhurried, replied, "Just come with me to a place. I believe you won't regret it." The more cryptic Gu Changsheng was, the more interested Niwa became. She stood up from her seat. "Fine, I'll go with you. But if you dare deceive me, I won't let you off lightly. Don't think being a Dalu or Jinxian of the primordial level allows you to act recklessly." Niwa's warning was selectively ignored by Gu Changsheng. With Niwa's agreement, the next step was to go to Mount Sumo. "Western 2 saints, I said before that this matter I sent over." Mount Sumu. The previously bisected Mount Sumu had been restored. However, while restoring its form was simple, restoring the Western sect's damaged fortunes was not something that could be achieved in 100 days. Moreover, Mount Sumu now appeared somewhat desolate. After the last incident, Jiejiao had instructed later disciples like Randong to find a new Taoist temple, Ling Mountain. Now, Randong, Tsehang, and others had gone to Ling Mountain, leaving only the original disciples of the Western sect, and the 2 Western saints at Mount Sumu. Junti said angrily, "Brother, at this rate, how long will it take for the Western sect's fortunes to recover?" They needed to think of a way, or their efforts would be wasted, and any talk of the Western sect flourishing would be pointless. Hearing this, Jie Yin's face also darkened. "I'll think of a way. That damned Gu Changsheng. Once Master repairs the Fengshen list, I'll go to Xixiao Palace to complain about him, and have Master deal with him." The mention of Gu Changsheng made Jie Yin gnash his teeth in anger, wishing he could tear Gu Changsheng apart. Just as he finished speaking, a mocking voice rang out, "Really? If you hate me so much, why not deal with me, yourself?" The sudden voice startled Jie Yin and Junti. They turned to see Gu Changsheng already standing before them. Gu Changsheng, Chapter 38, Maitreya's Deterrence, The Truth Unveiled, "You dare come to my Mount Sumu." Junti's furious roar echoed, his eyes blazing with anger, and a sacred aura emanating from his body, as if he was about to attack at any moment. Beside him, Jie Yin glared at Gu Changsheng with equal fury. However, Gu Changsheng merely glanced at Junti and said calmly, "What, you want to fight? Fine, I'd like to see how much progress you 2 saints of the West have made in these 100 days. As he spoke, Gu Changsheng raised his right hand, and a faint sword shadow appeared in his palm, exuding a terrifying aura that spread in all directions. At the sight of the heaven-smiting sword's shadow, Junti's eyes filled with fear. He remembered well the power of that sword. Although heavenly saints are immortal, No saint wished to die, even temporarily. But this was Mount Sumu. Retreating would be a disgrace to the Western religion. Zhanti gritted his teeth and said, Gu Changsheng, don't be too arrogant. This is Mount Sumu. Jiang Ziya frowned and said in a deep voice, Zhanti, stop talking. Gu Changsheng had once made an agreement with a teacher not to act recklessly unless provoked. If Zhanti continued, it would give Gu Changsheng an excuse to strike, leaving the Western religion with no one to turn to. Jiang Ziya then looked at Gu Changsheng and asked coldly, Gu Changsheng, there's no need to provoke us. I won't give the opportunity to attack. But this is Mount Sumu. Why have you come here? You are not welcome. Despite his anger, Jiang Ziya restrained himself. They were no match for Gu Changsheng. Last time, they lost the Eastern Blue Lotus treasure flag and the Merit Golden Lotus. Fighting again would only bring more suffering, and Jiang Ziya wasn't foolish enough to do that. Gu Changsheng smiled slightly. Among the two saints of the West, Jiang Ziya was indeed more composed, but it was useless. Gu Changsheng said calmly, Don't worry, I'm not here to cause trouble. I'm here to find someone. Both Jiang Ziya and Zhanti looked puzzled. Zhanti spoke up, Who are you looking for? There are no more of your Jie sect disciples here. The last time Gu Changsheng came, he took away all the Jie sect disciples like Qiu Shixin. Even those who weren't taken left the Western religion after vowed. Who could Gu Changsheng be looking for now? Jiang Ziya, staring at Gu Changsheng, felt increasingly uneasy. He knew Gu Changsheng's visit was not for a good reason. In response to Zhanti's question, Gu Changsheng smiled lightly and uttered two words, Maitreya. At the mention of Maitreya, both Jiang Ziya and Zhanti's expressions changed. Why was Gu Changsheng looking for Maitreya? Jiang Ziya immediately replied, Sorry, you were too late. Maitreya is not on Mount Sumu. Even as he spoke, Zhanti was secretly messaging Maitreya, telling him to leave Mount Sumu quickly. But Gu Changsheng was prepared. He had come specifically for Maitreya and would not let him escape. With a smirk, Gu Changsheng raised his right hand and made a grasping motion towards the distance. In an instant, a figure appeared in his hand. It was Maitreya. Maitreya looked terrified. Before he could leave Mount Sumu upon receiving Zhanti's message, he was captured by Gu Changsheng. Not just Maitreya, but even the two saints of the West couldn't escape if Gu Changsheng wanted them. Seeing Maitreya in Gu Changsheng's grasp, Jiang Ziya angrily shouted, Gu Changsheng, how dare you lay hands on a disciple of the Western religion? Unlike Jiang Ziya's anger, Gu Changsheng remained calm. He released Maitreya and said, Don't put it that way. If I had really attacked, he wouldn't be standing. I was merely helping you keep track of your disciples' whereabouts. Gu Changsheng's words left Jiang Ziya speechless. Zhanti, however, demanded loudly, Gu Changsheng, what do you want with Maitreya? If you dare harm him, I will inform our teacher. Though furious, Zhanti was puzzled. Why was Gu Changsheng looking for Maitreya? Jiang Ziya grew increasingly uneasy. There was no direct connection between Maitreya and the Jie sect, except for the incident where Maitreya manipulated King Zhou to desecrate Nuwa's temple, causing Nuwa to act against the Shang dynasty. Even Tongtian didn't know about this. How could Gu Changsheng, who had only recently returned, know? While Jiang Ziya pondered, Gu Changsheng looked at Maitreya and asked sternly, Don't panic. I just have one question for you. At Nuwa's temple, was it you who manipulated King Zhou to write the poem desecrating Nuwa? Jiang Ziya and Zhanti were shocked. How did Gu Changsheng know about this? Jiang Ziya immediately shouted, Gu Changsheng, stop slandering us. What does King Zhao's action have to do with the Western religion? But Gu Changsheng's voice rose sharply, Shut up. I'm not asking you. He then glared at Maitreya, his eyes filled with a cold light. The pressure of his Hunyuan Da Luo fifth heaven fell upon Maitreya, and he commanded coldly, Answer me. Yes or no. Under the immense pressure, Maitreya fell to his knees and stammered, Yes, yes, yes. In his extreme fear, Maitreya confessed the truth. The two saints of the West no longer hold back. Zhanti took a step forward, his sacred aura dispersing much of Gu Changsheng's pressure, and shouted, Gu Changsheng, what is the meaning of this? After Zhanti intervened, Gu Changsheng withdrew his pressure, and said calmly, Nothing much, just curious about this matter, so I came to ask. Maitreya, having told the truth, looked at Jiang Ziya in horror, knowing what this meant. But Jiang Ziya remained nonchalant and said, Don't worry. Even if Gu Changsheng knows, What difference does it make? As long as Nuwa doesn't find out. He then looked at Gu Changsheng and said coldly, "You don't think telling Nuwa about this will make her believe you, do you? It's useless. Even if Nuwa questions us, the Western religion will never admit it. This matter wasn't serious as long as Nuwa didn't know the truth." But Gu Changsheng shook his head and said slowly, "You are right. Even if I tell Nuwa, she might not believe me, as I have a grudge against the Western religion, and it's normal for me to scheme against you." Hearing this, Jialian's smile grew even more arrogant. "Since you understand, don't waste your efforts." But Gu Changsheng's next words made Jialian's heart tremble. Gu Changsheng looked towards the outside of Mount Sumu, and said calmly, "But what if our conversation just now was overheard by Nuwa?"
Chapter 39, Nuwa's Wrath, Matri's Demise, Sumer's Collapse. Gu Changsheng spoke nonchalantly, but his words were like a thunderclap to Jian and Zanti, especially to Maitreya, whose face turned ashen. If Nuwa found out, he would be doomed. Fortunately, Jian and Zanti were not easily frightened. Jian extended his divine sense, scanning the surroundings, but found no trace of Nuwa. He sneered, "Gu Changsheng, do you think I would believe such nonsense? If Nuwa were truly at Mount Sumru, how could Jian not know? Even if the Western Saints' cultivation wasn't high, they wouldn't be unaware of someone arriving at Mount Sumru." Hearing Jian's words, Matri's pallor slightly eased. As long as Nuwa hadn't heard this personally, he was safe. When Nuwa came to question, he could claim Gu Changsheng was framing him. His masters would surely support him. However, both Maitreya and the Western Saints underestimated Gu Changsheng. He smiled mysteriously, "Believe it or not, I already know what I wanted to know. And I am sure Nuwa knows as well." As he spoke, a powerful fluctuation of magic erupted from Gu Changsheng. Zanti immediately mobilized his power, watching Gu Changsheng warily. "Gu Changsheng, have you forgotten our teacher's words? Would Gu Changsheng dare act here?" Jian noticed something odd. The magical fluctuation from Gu Changsheng wasn't from a Hanyun Daluo Jinxian, but seemed more like a heavenly Dao saint. But wasn't Gu Changsheng a Hanyun Daluo? Before they could react, a bead appeared in Gu Changsheng's left palm, radiating light. Within the light, a figure slowly became visible. As the light dissipated, an indescribable chill enveloped Mount Sumru. When they saw that it was Nuwa, the Western Saints' faces changed dramatically, and Matri's slightly relieved expression turned ashen once more. Nuwa was truly here. Maitreya felt hopeless and helplessly looked at the Western Saints, his only hope of salvation. Gu Changsheng stepped back, a faint smile on his lips. His goal was achieved, now it was up to Nuwa. For Gu Changsheng, if he had returned to the primordial world, at the start of the conferred gods period, Maitreya would never have succeeded in manipulating King Zhou, and Nuwa would have sided with the Jie sect. Everything would avenue changed. But now wasn't too late. Getting Maitreya to confess was easy, ensuring Nuwa heard it herself was the challenge. The chaos bead served its purpose, allowing Nuwa to remain hidden within it, undetectable even to the Western Saints. With his objective complete, it was time to watch the show. Seeing Gu Changsheng retreat, Jian and Zanti were furious. How had they been outmaneuvered by Gu Changsheng? But now they had no time to deal with him. What about Nuwa? Zanti tried to explain but found himself at a loss for words. How could they explain? Nuwa had heard everything. Jian took a deep breath and addressed Nuwa. "Nuwa, it is true that Maitreya was wrong. The Western religion is willing to compensate you." At this, a glimmer of hope appeared in Matri's eyes. If his masters would protect him, there was still a chance. But Nuwa didn't seem interested in listening. She raised her jade hand, and divine light blossomed from her palm. A series of sword hums echoed. Zanti's pupils contracted. Nuwa's 7 heavenly blades. Before Zanti could react, Nuwa's hand waved, and the blades shot towards Maitreya. In an instant, the 7 blades howled through the air. Maitreya was terrified. With his cultivation, how could he withstand the power of these blades? The next moment, the 7 heavenly blades pierced through Maitreya's body, creating several bloody holes. Blood splattered as he fell to his knees. His eyes filled with disbelief. Why weren't his masters protecting him? Why did Nuwa attack without a word? But these questions would remain unanswered. Life faded from Maitreya's eyes. He was dead. Silence fell. Gu Changsheng glanced at Nuwa. This woman was ruthless. Dante's face twitched uncontrollably. He thought Nuwa might question Maitreya, but she acted without a word. It was too sudden. Nuwa completely ignored the Western saint's presence. Jian frowned and spoke in a deep voice. Nuwa, killing a disciple of the Western religion directly is excessive, isn't it? Though the Western religion was in the wrong, he had to say something after losing a disciple. But Nuwa's gaze turned cold, and killing intent flashed in her eyes. Though both were saints, Jian felt a wave of fear under her gaze. Nuwa sneered, excessive. As a saint, she had been manipulated by Maitreya and used by the Western religion. How could she accept this? Her divine power surged to its peak. I will make the Western religion pay. Her voice, full of killing intent, echoed as she unleashed the 7 heavenly blades towards Jian. Jian, shocked, hastily released his power to defend himself. Dante also unleashed his power, shouting, Nuwa, Maitreya is dead. What more do you want? But Nuwa wouldn't relent. Maitreya's death wasn't the end. Such a scheme couldn't have happened without the Western saint's instigation. I will destroy the Western religion. Blinded by rage, Nuwa didn't care about the consequences. After the 7 heavenly blades, she summoned the map of mountains and rivers, attacking Dante. Fortunately, Dante was prepared and defended himself. Jian narrowly avoided the 7 heavenly blades, but their impact caused Mount Sumru to tremble violently. The recently restored mountain began to collapse once more. Chapter 40, How did you know? Boom, boom, boom. With a series of crashing sounds, rocks fell from the mountain. Jian looked at the sudden appearance of blue sky and green forests in front of him, his expression turning stiff. Under Nuwa's attack, Mount Sumru had collapsed again. After a brief moment of shock, Jian's anger surged, his eyes turning red. Nuwa, you've gone too far. Jian growled each word through clenched teeth. A sect's dojo was closely tied to its fate and reputation. In the ancient Longnan tribulation, the Dao ancestors' battle with Rahu resulted in Mount Sumru's collapse, which was unavoidable. But when Gu Changsheng's sword cleaved Mount Sumru last time, it had already disgraced the Western religion, destroying the foundation they had painstakingly rebuilt over millions of years. And now, just 100 days later, their dojo had collapsed again. The Western religion would be a laughingstock in the primordial world. True, Maitreya had wronged Nuwa, but wasn't it just a scheme? It didn't cause her any real harm. Yet, Nuwa not only killed Maitreya, but also destroyed Mount Sumru. The divine investiture board was still with their teacher for repairs. With Maitreya's death now, there was no guarantee he could even be placed on the list. Jian was truly furious. But Nuwa was equally livid. Her beautiful eyes glared at Jian, the veins on the back of her jade hand standing out as she spoke each word with force. Gone too far. Do you two Western saints even count as people? Today, I will let you know the price of scheming against me. Nuwa's saintly aura erupted once more. This time, Jian and Dante also lost their tempers. They surrounded Nuwa from both sides, their auras surging as they attacked together. In an instant, the shattered Mount Sumru became a battleground for 3 saints. Terrifying waves of magical power swept the area, forcing nearby cultivators to watch from a distance. Gu Changsheng stood on a rock, watching the battle with great interest. Judging by cultivation, Nuwa should have a slight advantage over the two Western saints. Their method of becoming saints left them with a weaker foundation compared to the other four saints. However, Jian and Zanti were two, which prevented Nuwa from gaining a decisive upper hand, and only a slight advantage. If this trend continued, Nuwa should still be the likely victor. Nuwa waved her jade arm, releasing red light as she summoned her magic weapon, the red silk ball, hurling it towards Jian. Seeing the red silk ball coming at him, Jian's face darkened as he summoned the merit golden lotus. But the moment the two collided, the merit golden lotus was instantly shattered, shooting back towards Jian. He quickly formed a golden body to shield himself. With a loud crash, the golden body was smashed to pieces by the red silk ball, and Jian spat out a mouthful of blood. Turning his head, he glared at Gu Changsheng with resentment. Nuwa's red silk ball was powerful, but without Gu Changsheng, his merit golden lotus wouldn't have fallen to 6 petals, nor would his eastern blue lotus banner have been damaged. If the 12-petal arid golden lotus and the eastern blue lotus banner were still intact, he wouldn't be in such a sorry state. On the other side, Zanti, eyes red with fury, used the 7 treasures tree, attempting to sweep away Nuwa's magical weapons. The tree's brilliance swept up Nuwa's 7 heavenly lads. But as Zanti was feeling triumphant, he heard Jin's urgent shout. "Junior brother, watch out!" Zanti turned to see the mountain and river mud blowing, pulling him inside. Jin's eyes filled with bloodshot rage as he saw Zanti trapped. "Nuwa, you've gone too far. Do you think two Western saints are so easily bullied? First Gu Changsheng, now Nuwa. Did everyone think they could trample on the Western religion?" Jin's aura became extremely violent. Nuwa's willow-like brows furrowed slightly. Was Jian going to fight to the death? So be it. She prepared to cast her divine powers. But just as they were about to clash, a purple light shot through the sky. Under the purple glow, both Nuwa and Jin's power were suppressed. From within the light, a figure emerged. Gu Changsheng sneered. He had expected Han Zhan to intervene, though it seemed to be only a projection. Han Zhang's face was grim as he looked at the gathered figures. He just wanted to repair the divine investiture board quickly. Why were there so many problems? Before Han Zhang could speak, Jian began complaining. "Teacher, Nuwa killed our disciple, destroyed Mount Sumru. Please seek justice for the Western religion." Hearing this, Gu Changsheng couldn't help but twitch his lips. Jian always used the same plea. Couldn't he change it up? Nuwa immediately said, "Teacher, the Western saints ordered Maitreya." "No need to explain. I already know what happened." Han Zhang interrupted Nuwa. He spoke solemnly. "Maitreya is dead, and Mount Sumru is destroyed. This matter ends here. No more fighting." With that, Han Zhang glanced at Gu Changsheng, but said nothing before his projection dissipated. He had no time to waste on such matters. Though Han Zhang's projection had left, neither Nuwa nor the Western saints dared to defy his decree. Nuwa released Zanti from the mountain and river map, and Zanti returned the 7 heavenly blades. As Nuwa was about to leave, she turned back to the Western saints with a cold look. "This isn't over yet." She then turned and left. Gu Changsheng followed, as he still needed to obtain the 9 heavens breath earth. Seeing them leave, Zanti looked at Jian, gritting his teeth. "Senior brother, are we just going to let this go?" Jian glared at Zanti. "Shut up. I need to think." From the witch and demon war to the divine investiture, he had always been in control, certain of victory. Why did such troublesome events keep happening after Gu Changsheng appeared? He needed to find a way to deal with Gu Changsheng. Meanwhile, Gu Changsheng and Nuwa returned to the war palace. Gu Changsheng smiled. "Can you give me the 9 heavens breath earth now?" Nuwa looked at Gu Changsheng with a complex expression. She had to thank him for revealing the truth about Maitreya. Without Gu Changsheng, she might never have known. Giving him the 9 heavens breath earth was no big deal. But Nuwa had one question. She stepped closer, her beautiful eyes fixed on Gu Changsheng, and asked softly, I'll give it to you, but I want to know, how did you find out the truth about King Zhou?